in the Joint Select Committee meeting of Parliament, where they are discussing the JTC bill. And so I'm going to encourage you and invite you, not now, absolutely not now, but when you have a chance to head over to YouTube, where the video is being streamed to the channel for the PBCJ, and you are able to go over there at a later time to watch the video. There are also other videos from that select committee meeting that you can look at your leisure when you do have a chance. And so I'm greeting you on behalf of the Chief Executive Officer for the Teaching Council, one Dr. Winsome Gordon, as well as those of us here from the Teaching Council. Miss Bailey is in this space. I think by now everybody knows Miss Dredra Bailey, and I don't have to say, I think I'm absolutely sure that everybody also knows Mrs. Ingrid Peart-Wilmot, who I believe is also in this space with us. And I want to welcome her to this space and to introduce her to you. Perchance you might not have met her as yet. Mrs. Ingrid Peart-Wilmot is telling me something about not being host or something to that effect, but I'm ignoring her roundly and soundly. Indeed, she is not able to open her video because she didn't put on makeup this morning or something to that effect. I'm not sure, but we are absolutely sure that she will support the process in the chat and perhaps over the mic as well. Ms. Bailey, as you know, is the PD specialist here at the Teaching Council. So how are you doing? I wouldn't mind if somebody could tell me one of the things that happened today that was really good for them. A session, an activity, an engagement, something you participated in that was really very good for you. Today's PD Day for Teachers. We at the Council get excited about it. We are of this view that other people are excited about it too. So tell me something that happened to you today that you enjoyed, a lesson you learned, a session you went into, something professional development related, something related to your growth and development as a professional, as a teacher. What happened to you today that you are celebrating, that you are happy about? Anybody at all? Andrea Wiley. Greetings, Andrea. How are you?
Greetings, sir. I am good.
Excellent, excellent.
Right. I went in the session about
oh Lord, Andrea, just cut out just like that.
I don't remember the. All right. I went to into this session, the blueprint session. Yes. And I'm telling you, it was really, really good. I'm glad that I went in that session.
Excellent, excellent. I think some of the presenters are here in this space. And I see a few persons mentioning in the chat as well that that blueprint session went very well for them. I'm glad. I'm pleased. Right. I'm glad that you enjoyed that, Andrea. Really glad.
Okay, sir.
Indeed, indeed. Heather.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mr. Leslie.
Greetings.
I went in the session, the blueprint design for flourishing in the final term.
The blueprint Philistines are upon us. I don't understand. What happened to the other sessions? Go ahead, Debbie.
It has been a wonderful experience. Nothing that you didn't know, but it was just a refresh. And while I was there listening, I was able department members and encourage each other that within our toolkit we need to have all of these things. And the one that stood out to me most was no matter what happened in our circle, we have to think positive. And sometimes when we are not feeling well, as Miss said, we have the health card, use it up, do the executive profile, find out your health status. And above all, we just need to ensure that we take care of ourselves. Self-care is critical.
Indeed, excellent, excellent. I say Pamela's hand is up. Thank you very much, Ed. I'm going to take Pamela's hand, but I'm also going to ask, did anybody do anything with their school today? Not with the Teaching Council, with your school that you particularly enjoyed and you wanted to share with us? Pamela Gray, I see two Pamela's hands are up. Pamela.
Good afternoon, colleagues.
Greetings.
Okay, I was in this session winding down the school year with the 3 I's. It was very exciting. The 3 I's are interaction, inclusion, innovation. And the part that stood out most for me was that you should not label the students, you should address the needs. And you should not use numbers, you should use names. And you should not use place, you should use services.
Wow. Seems like we should really ask you, Pamela, to do the presentation to all of us. Because everything you said there just now, I'm about to ask you to explain, but we don't have time.
Okay.
We don't have time. But yes, I can see that certainly stood out for you. I'm glad. That's Pamela. Great. There's another Pamela. Oh Lord, the Pamelas are up on us. There's another Pamela I'm going to call on now. I don't know if it's the same Pamela Gray who raised her hand twice. Pamela? Are you there, Pamela? And remember, I want to hear about something that took place in your school. Not something that the council offered, but an activity you participated in your school. Let's go to Nadine Chambers Brown, since I'm not hearing Pamela.
Good afternoon, sir, and everyone.
Greetings.
Yes, today is my birthday, but
oh, look at that.
What I did yesterday, I celebrated my birthday yesterday with my students. I bought cake and ice cream and cookies, and I gave my grade 3 students and the grade 3 teachers and some of the rest of the grade 3 students. And that was fun to all of us.
Okay, excellent. I'm very glad that you bought yourself cake and ice cream for your birthday, Nadine.
Yes,
treat yourself.
Sir.
That's what self-care is all about, not true?
Yes, sir.
Indeed, excellent. Happy birthday, Nadine. I'm looking at your picture, and I'm going to take a guess that today is perhaps I'm not going to guess actually, but it's your birthday. Let's going to say happy birthday to you, my dear. And I hope that you have had a good day so far, and that it will only improve from here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, good. Did anybody not do something with their school today, though? I'm really curious to know. I'm really curious. If you did something with your school today and you wanted to say, I did something with my school, and this is what we did, and I enjoyed it. Just put your hand up. I wouldn't mind hearing from somebody who is engaging as a school community, and you benefited from an interaction with your colleagues organized by your school. Florence says we all came to JTC. I hear you, Florence. But I'm really trying to encourage schools to have these conversations with each other and not just with the teaching council. Tyrone's Galaxy A10. You want to go ahead and unmute?
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, we actually did self-care.
At your school?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Different ways to care for ourselves. It was great.
Excellent.
We took it from a medical perspective.
From a medical perspective.
So we had a doctor presenting.
Okay.
And then we had a colleague presenting.
Which school are you? You're not Tyrone, I'm sure.
Ebenezer. No, I'm Nicola.
You're Nicola.
Sorry about that. Yes.
No, that's fine. Ebenezer?
Yes, Ebenezer Primary Infant.
Oh Lord, is where that we know, Nicola?
That's in Manchester.
But of course, I knew that. I was just going to say that. That's Manchester, of course. Right, yeah. Close right up beside that school. Yeah, I know Ebenezer. I've been there a few times. Actually, I haven't been there a few times. Thank you, Nicola, for sharing. Let me take Andrea's hand for the last time, and then we will jump into what we're talking about this afternoon. Andrea Smith.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Leslie. How are you?
Hi. I am doing well enough, I think.
Okay, happy to hear that.
Great.
We actually had a little training session this morning on Zoom, Maypen Primary, that is. Parents had challenges retrieving their children's report from September. So one of our colleagues had a little training session with them this morning, the grade 2 parents, to show them how they should retrieve their children's reports. And I think it was fantastic.
Excellent. What was the support like, Andrea?
It was good. Almost 100 persons were on.
Nice.
This morning. Yes, because
Nice.
you know, Maitland Primary is a big school, fairly
Oh,
big
yes.
school.
Yes, I think it might be the largest primary school, second perhaps only to Mandeville Primary, I think.
Maybe.
Right, yeah. So 100 is not bad, but you know, sometimes that is the biggest challenge when you're engaging parents, just getting them to come, you know.
But as I said, it was just for the grade 2, that is.
Right.
It wasn't the entire population. That was still good.
All right, good stuff, good stuff. Angela, I see your hand has gone up. Can I give you the last word, and then thereafter we're moving into our planned activity. Angela, go ahead. Thank you very much. Andrea, let's hear from Angela now. Go ahead, Angela.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
Yes. For us at Mount Herman Primary in Westmoreland, it was about will making. Some years ago, we had the teachers on a professional development day as well. We had our teachers make their wills. Had a JP come in, and we did that. And it so happened, unfortunately, that one of the teachers who at the time when we were making the will, she was saying, I don't have anything, I don't see why. It was a young teacher, and she was saying she didn't see the sense. We say, go ahead and do it. And this was like February. And October of that year, she passed.
Oh, don't tell me that. Oh, Angela.
Oh, yes.
No. Oh, no.
It was so sad.
I can imagine.
Fortunate for her, she did that will. Right? It was probated, and her mother and her son, you know, benefited from that. So we decided that we would do again for those persons who needed to amend their will or those who really needed to make. So for us, we did the same thing.
Oh, you're brave, Angela. Angela, you're brave. The last time you did it, that happened. That you do it again today. I pray for you, Lord. Cover them. Cover them, Lord. Cover them.
Well, I tell you, they say lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place. You just never know. But we rather be safe than sorry. And based on what has been happening, you know, within the education, the teaching fraternity, it's just so sad. So that was what we did for our professional development day. So we had like 10 staff members, you know, making their will.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. There are some conversations that we tend not to have, especially, you know, with ourselves as professionals. And that's one of those things, I suppose, that might be very helpful. Thank you for sharing that, Angela. And when you said Mount Herman Primary, I thought Region 6. There's a Mount Herman in Region 6, close to where I grew up. So when you said Mount Herman Primary, I thought, I know Mount Herman. But then you said Westmoreland. And I realized that you are the fake Mount Herman, not the original. You are the copy. You are the copy. The original is in Region 6. I can tell you that. St. Catherine. That's where the original Mount Herman is. Anyways, guys, if you allow me, I will sit here and pretend like I'm an entertainer for the entire evening and forget that we have promised you that if you come this afternoon, we are going to be talking about two things. Now, we have two brief conversations. Each of them is really only about 1 hour long. These are brief conversations. These are conversation starters. The intention is that once we start these conversations with you, we are encouraging you, we're expecting you to kind of continue with these conversations in your local space, and perhaps even with the teaching council as we revisit these conversations from time to time. I have decided that I will take the first session. The first session will be about changes you can make to your end of year assessment. We felt that this was a good time to have the conversation because we know we are standing right on the cusp of those final assessments, and that we are now about to get to the point, where you perhaps have already started designing your end of year instrument, or you're starting that discussion about your end of year instrument. So we are going to be engaging you around that conversation this afternoon. I'm saying conversation because we don't anticipate that a 1 hour conversation is a training. And so we are not seeing this as a training exercise. This is just for you to start thinking about an idea, and hopefully you can follow the thread of that idea through in your local space. The second conversation we want to have, which we think is also absolutely crucial, is about evidence gathering for your professional portfolio. Ms. Dredra Bailey will take that second part of the conversation, and that will take place at 4. If I would just hurry up and get to my conversation, then at some point you might actually get to hear from Ms. Bailey as she will take you through what she had planned for you. Now, I'm going to be sharing my screen. You can just kind of confirm for me, please, that you are seeing it. Dredra, perhaps you can just let me know that indeed you are. Well, I don't hear anybody saying no or yes for that matter. Let me go in the chat and see what's happening over there. Okay, people are seeing the screen.
Yes,
I'm just realizing that quite a bit was going on in the chat. Apparently, tomorrow is International Children's Day. And is that Doreen? Did I get the name right? We'll be reading stories for her kids. Okay, quite a bit going on. Greetings and salutations, everyone. I'm not so sure why teachers insist on putting their name on school in a Zoom chat. That's like a practice we have developed and normalized. I will let you know that we will be sharing a link with you that you can use to tell us who you are, and we will use that information to keep in touch with you and so on. So just stick and stay for that link towards the end. So bold changes you can make to your end of year assessment. We're going to be going a little faster from here, but we'll clearly stop where we need to. So there's only one thing we're looking at in this session. And again, it's a 1-hour conversation. We can't attempt to do too much. We'll be looking at how you can enhance your assessment by using a variety of item types. This is one of the areas of practice that I think is fairly easy to change. This is what we call a low-hanging fruit. It's one of those things that we can easily change, but I find that we generally don't think about item type when we think about our assessment pieces. Is the session being recorded? No. We're now streaming to YouTube. We feel that if the session is being streamed to YouTube, it's going to be recorded there. We don't think we need to record it in Zoom as well. So this session is now live on YouTube. And once the session finishes, the video will be available on YouTube for you to go and access without us having to email it to you, etc. All right, and you can tell your friends perchance if they prefer to join us there, then they can go and join us there, even though I think we still have some space in this room. So just to kind of start a little conversation going, I wouldn't mind hearing from a few persons. What is the best or worst advice you have ever received about assessment? Best or worst? You can tell me. You can put 1 or 2 in the chat, and if you feel you want to raise your hand and I allow you to kind of take the mic, you can go ahead and do that as well. So let me just bring up my participants list. What's the best or worst advice you have ever received about assessment? Oh, we don't give advice about assessment? Lorraine Brown says that it has to be a written test. You're advised that it has to be a written test, Lorraine? That is unfortunate, that it has to be a written test. Indeed, that is a very, if you were really told that, and I do believe you were told that, that would have been professional misconduct, I imagine, for anyone to tell you that assessment has to be a written test. It discriminates well. That is laws. I wonder if laws wants to expand on that or elaborate on that a little. Use a rubric to assess the student's work. Is that a good or a bad piece of advice, Morticia? No multiple choice and has to test most areas. Justina White says that there should be no multiple choice and it has to test most areas. That's a bad advice, I suppose you're saying. Just let me know if the advice you're putting in here is good or bad, if it's the best or worst. Christine Cheddar says you should use various assessments. I don't know if that's good or bad. Create a table of specs, that is Ms. Clark. I imagine that's good. Assessment should include a variety of item types, use a table of spec, and so on. any other piece of advice that you have received? Anybody wants to share their own experience, perhaps over the mic, in terms of advice that you have gotten and how it has worked for or against you? I don't know if this is an advice, but my summative items, I was told my items were like classwork with the multiple choice, grade, close passage, etc. Claudine Michelle, grade 6. I really wouldn't mind, Claudine, if you could expand on that, because that sounds like what I'm going to call sophisticated advice. Yes, you would have been counseled, it seemed, by somebody who had given it some thought. Claudine, you want to tell us a little bit more about that? Guys, don't be afraid to use the mic, I tell you. No true or false question should be given. Maureen Kennedy says that is the advice she got. It should not be too easy. Oh, what an idea. How do we define easy? What does easy mean with respect to assessment? Must be marked out of 100, really? Pamela says she was told that the assessment must be marked out of 100. I don't understand what that means. You mean as a percentage? Well, if it is, then yes, it's out of 100. But in terms of the raw, and catch the long pause between the two words, raw, long pause, score, because we don't want any confusion on the YouTube video later. Then that raw, again, long pause, score, doesn't need to be out of 100. It clearly, whatever total you have can then be expressed as a percentage, which is out of 100. Why does it feel like I'm doing a math class? Let me stop going down that road. Test items should match the objectives. You should not assess content that was not taught. Oof, now Miss McCullough, you're getting into some testy area. Assessment should be continuous. I say Stacey and Sharier has the courage to raise her hand. Stacey, commendations. Go ahead.
Hey everyone.
Yes, greetings.
I see a lot of people giving some very good advice that I have gotten where it relates to assessment. But my drawback to that is this: when you are teaching, they come down heavily on differentiated activities for the students. But at the end of the day, there is no differentiation in the assessment.
Yeah. One of the things that always puzzles me, Stacey, and the colleagues, is how little control schools seem to think they have over their assessment. It's almost as if schools tend to think that they must assess a particular way because that is how everybody else assesses, or that is how the ministry assesses, almost as if there is no understanding that a school can develop its own assessment plan, its own assessment culture, its own assessment practices that work for the school. And so that is one of the areas indeed that I find there is very little there's little practice around that, the idea of assessment that respects the individual needs of students. Indeed. Thank you for that, Stacey. And I'm going to move on. Use odd numbers for test questions. Example, 50 out of 50, as opposed to 40 out of 40. Good advice. Boy, I really want to ask you about that odd number thing, Miss Scott. Use odd numbers for test question. Example, 50 out of 50. That's an odd number, I suppose, as opposed to 40 out of 40. That's an even number. We can have a discussion about odd and even number, Miss Scott, later on, if you wish. It gives a truer representation of test scores. Boy, Miss Scott, I really want you to tell me a little bit more about that, to be honest. Nadine Chambers Brown, go ahead.
Sir, I want to know, I'm a bit hoarse. I want to know
Hey, Nadine, wait.
I'm a bit hoarse, sir.
Hey, Nadine.
Sir?
Yes, go ahead. I even over the mic, me kind of afraid, but go ahead, Nadine.
Sir, don't make it so bad. All right, I want to know, can't we have oral assessment in our primary schools? Because you have some students that know the content, they can tell you the answers verbally, but to put it on paper, they can't do it. And they know it. They know everything.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So,
yeah.
Yes,
Nadine, and again, I go back to that point I made earlier. Is you're running your schools, meaning you, your principal, as a group of learners, as a group of professionals, have formed this community and you're calling it a school. you are implementing the curriculum to meet the needs of your students, there is absolutely no reason why you can't decide that you're going to implement an oral assessment component as a part of your grade 4 end of term test. And I've picked grade 4 randomly, but I'm saying to you, there's absolutely no reason why you can't simply design an assessment plan that works for your school. And that assessment plan needs not look like any other assessment plan in any other school. It must be grounded, though, in good practice. It must be grounded in research. You must have some way of articulating why you are doing this. You're not just doing it because it sounds nice, you know? You might want to start a little action research and see if the oral assessment component works. And then from there now, you can perhaps move into cascading that across your school if the pilot or the action research show that it worked. But yes, absolutely. We love to see when schools feel empowered to make these decisions for themselves without waiting for signals from the ministry or from JTC and so on. You are the ones who are implementing the curriculum to your students. You know them more than we do. As long as you have research on your side, as long as you can defend your practice, there's absolutely no reason why you would have to seek permission to do what it is you think would work best for the students entrusted to your care. All right, we're going to move on, but quite a bit going on in the chat. If you want to get some examples of good, bad, and not so good advice, then you can go in the chat and look. I can take out all of them. Tamoy, we're going to give the last word on this, and then we move on. Tamoy Clark Richards.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
What we were told at our school is that test items should not be read to students. So we have a mixed ability in our classes, and we have, above the grade level, in between, and those are the late ones or the slow ones or the non-readers. So all students have to sit and scan to read their test items and answer them, but we should not read to the students at all.
Right. And Tamai, again, I know absolutely nothing about your school. I don't know what the practices are. I don't know what measures are in place. I never ever question a school's decision without fully understanding why. And even then, I don't question a school's decision. The principal is in charge of that, of leading instruction. I'm hoping that that decision came out of some studied research, some understanding of what the thrust is that we're working at. And if you were to read to students, we're going to undermine that particular thrust. And so I'm going to take it at face value that that decision would have been well thought out and then interrogated so that you have a good understanding as to why it was done. But clearly, I'm not saying that that position that has been articulated just now by Tamoy is what I would expect to see across all schools. Know what works in your institution, and as a group of professionals, come to a point where you design the best thing that works for your school. Yes? All right, so I want to start with a little discussion, and I spent quite a bit of time, an unreasonable amount of time, to be honest, before this presentation, looking at some examples of end-of-year tests, real examples of end-of-year tests from real teachers who are teaching real students in real schools. I asked teachers who I know to share examples of their end-of-year tests with me, and I spent some time looking at 103 end-of-year tests. Now, that sounds like a low number, but when I want somebody sitting on looking at 103 end-of-year tests, your eyes start to roll over after the first 20 or 30. I went through 103 end-of-year tests. These are actual tests that teachers had written for years before. 59 teachers shared their end-of-year tests with me, 59. Those 59 teachers were from 36 high schools and 39 primary schools. So that is, what's that, 39 and 36, that's 69 and 6, 75. It seems like 75 schools in total would have sent me papers. And clearly some schools had, whatever that number works out. They teach 7 subject areas. And so I saw papers from math, language, and so on. Here are some of the results that I saw. What types of items did we see on the test? And this is the point I really want to start with, and this is the point I'm going to make. What types of items did I see on the test that I reviewed? 72% of the items that were on the test were extended response questions. You know what we mean by extended response questions? Discuss the factors that cause the breakdown of the transatlantic slave trade. That's an extended response question. Or in math, solve the following problem showing all work. That's an extended response question. Sometimes we call them essay type question. 72%, almost 3/4 of the papers that I looked at had extended response questions on the paper. In other words, 3 out of every 4 papers that I saw had the kids were asked to write some kind of extended response or to respond to some kind of extended response questions. Multiple choice questions. 68% of the papers that I looked at had multiple choice questions. 41% had short answer questions. 28% had fill in the blank, and 19% had true and false questions. This is the spread. Having looked at 103 papers, only 5 types of test items were present across 103 papers from 59 teachers. From 59 teachers, I only saw 5 types of test items. Let me kind of put that into context for you. When I looked at 103 test papers from all of 75 schools, there were only 5 types of test items on all of those papers. Extended response being the most popular. When I went further, I said to myself, what types of items are most popular? And as you can imagine, the 2 types of items that are almost always present on every paper are extended response and multiple choice. The typical format for the end of year assessment that I looked at was some multiple choice questions in section 1, and then in section 2, some extended response questions. Very rarely, in only 24% of the time, did we not see these. 76% of the time, we saw multiple choice questions and extended response questions. And then you will have some short answer questions thrown in, or some fill in the blank, or some true and false questions thrown in. But we never saw anything aside from extended response, multiple choice, short answer questions, fill in the blank, and true and false. Only those 5 item types. And if you really think about it, a fill in the blank and a true and false works almost like a multiple choice question, to be honest, in terms of what the item does to the level of thinking that students are engaged in. Now, clearly, I don't know enough about the teachers in these schools, the students in these schools. I don't know enough about the assessment plans in these schools. I don't know what the assessment policies for these schools say. So I can't pass judgment, nor am I trying to pass judgment. However, I am saying that seeing only 5 types of items and seeing multiple choice and essay type questions 3/4 of the time tells me that the variety of items that we use on our assessment tend to be fairly limited. Where you will find most variety, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, is at the primary level, where you will find a teacher will have multiple different ways of asking questions that the students are supposed to answer. I want you to tell me now, when you think about your own assessment practices, is this ever something you think about? Are you ever deliberate about item types? Do you ever think deliberately about what types of items are on your test? Or is that something that you don't ever even wonder how you could vary? Are you ever deliberate about the types of items on your test? Or do you end up with a test every year that looks the same way, and it's just now that you're thinking about it, you realize that, true, I have never ever thought about a different type of item. I see a few persons saying yes. I see Stacy and Sharia. Stacy, I'm going to just allow you to unmute and go ahead, even as I try to stay up to up to pace with the chat. Go ahead, Stacey.
And some of the other persons have said that you are not allowed to read for the students. So when I'm at test, I try to make sure that there are different arrangements of test items on that test, because then I will have to cater for those students who are unable to read a passage. So you might put a picture and ask that student to match the word to a picture, or maybe ask the student to draw something so that you're able to, every student is able to get a mark on that test.
Right. And I mean, you said a few things interesting there that we could probe a little bit. So for example, the notion that every student should get a mark on that test. We're getting into some other purposes for testing that is more than cognitive. So we are assessing for other reasons aside from understanding. We're using it for motivation and just to create the social atmosphere within the classroom and so on. Some persons ask whether or not that should even be a purpose of testing and so on. But I hear you. You are more deliberate, you say, about the way that you frame your instruments. Anybody is not so keen on, well, has not been so keen on assessment types, and it has just kind of evolved without you thinking about what kinds of items you write? Rosemary says, yes, I do. She thinks about the item types. I try to give a variety, maybe the same ones you got, but I go less of the extended type one, as they can't read well. So I now include pictures and drawings. Yes, I think of the items and so on. Anybody who has not been your experience, and as you reflect now, you are realizing that that's not quite how you have designed your instrument. You don't tend to vary your item type significantly, and from year to year, your assessment instruments look different. This is an excellent group of teachers who clearly do quite a bit of work in ensuring that their assessment instruments are at that point where variety is built into it. A friend of mine said today, let me see if she's in the meeting before I tell her what she said. She's not in the meeting, so I can say it. A friend of mine said today that variety is the spice of life. And I said to her, you, a married woman, talking about variety, you should be ashamed of yourself. So, but indeed, variety is the spice of life if we're talking about assessment and your professional life. To be clear. Kadian says, I have not deliberately thought about item types, mostly because assessment at my school is a group effort. And that's one of the challenges that I find undermines the assessment practices. The way we organize ourselves to create the assessment instrument does not lend itself to creativity or to that kind of rigor in developing. I say, Kate, Miss McCullough's hand is up. Kate, and I wouldn't mind if you would share a little bit more about how the group effort hinders you from creating the best assessment that you want. Miss McCullough, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And I do agree with you, Mr. Leslie, when you stated about the creativity. What I've realized from my school, sometimes, you have subject base. Say, for example, I do integrated studies, you do mathematics, and another teacher may do language arts. So what you're realizing is that the teacher that does the mathematics lesson plan, that test is set in a way how that teacher teaches. Remember, we all teach differently. Yes, that paper is sent to an assessment body where they will look at the question on the different levels, the DOK level and all of that. But if you teach a particular way, the questions may set to your student's advantage. If you're understanding what I'm saying, because you taught them this way. Example, I'm saying, all right, more on top, more on the floor. You take a group of 10. I teach a certain way. You may structure a question in a way that you taught your students. Right. There are 7 other teachers. We don't teach that way, even though our students can do the test. It is structured in a way that the words that are used and all those things have to put into consideration to benefit all the levels. Because if you're writing, Mr. Leslie, come on, personality comes into play and what you see as best. And maybe another teacher does not do things like you.
Right,
and
right.
It's just not fair.
Ms. McCullough, you seem to be throwing word at somebody in the meeting. Call name, Mom. Don't be afraid.
No, I'm not.
You.
But what I'm just saying that if you know,
you.
because my personality ties in with my exam if I'm writing, but at the same time, I try to cater to everybody. Right. Because remember, how you teach, it has a way how you write. Right. Because you're writing to how you deliver.
Right. So in your instance, you use a standardized test across your grade level. So all the teachers all the students in a particular grade sit the same test. So the scope to modify it and so on is limited.
The assessment body modifies it as well, and if there are correction, they will send it back to state that change this one, reword this one. But I'm just saying that sometimes when the different person set it, it's set to how they taught their students.
Right, yeah. So maybe some competencies in item writing, so that because a big part of writing item is for them to be as context-free as possible. So the child who is in Montego Bay reading this item can answer it just as the child who is in Westmoreland or St. Thomas or Kingston. So, you know, the context within which an item is written, the words used, the examples do not give some students an advantage over others. So a little item writing training might be useful in your instance, Ms. McCullough. That is something that I know the SAU does quite a bit of work in, helping teachers to write item that does not put some students at an advantage over others. But I take the point to make it. Lorna, oh Lord, quite a few hands. Look here.
And Mr. Leslie?
Yes, Ms. McCullough.
Just to end, what I've learned over the years, based on assessment, what I've learned at college, and it lies with me up until this day. We cannot assess what we have not taught. And I say this to say, if you're teaching synonyms, for example, and you just taught synonyms basic as in similarities, pretty, beautiful, just regular putting them on a line, and then you put an assessment to match synonyms. You did not taught matching of synonyms, so you cannot assess for that. And as a person, they just go out and they find different activities. Once it marks synonym, I'm going to send it to the students to do. But the truth is, we did not taught that. And then we expect 100 or we expect 90, but we just did not taught that.
Right. I understand what you're saying as well, but again, there's a bigger discussion to be had about how we create independent learners. The truth is, the concept of synonym is what you are teaching in terms of the actual context of the question, whether it is a matching question or it is a fill in the blank question or so. The student should have enough experience with it, but also intuitively look at an item and see what it is asking. Because the truth is, not every single item type might make its way to your classroom, and that's just the truth. But the students should be able to look at an item type and say, oh, they're asking me to find the word in this passage that best reflect the word of here. So even though at no point did you show them an example of that item type. We're running along. Lorna.
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes. I agree what you just stated, but I am thinking that I have never seen a Ministry of Education grade 3 exam with those different ways of preparing item types. Grade 3 diagnostic exams are always multiple choice. So I would have thought that they would have modeled that for us if they want that.
And Lorna, you see them ever give me the test if you write? You just say item type like till you're crazy, you hear? And
well, I would want that.
No, but I'm telling you that some of the standards that we have, we here are promoting some of the effective standards that are outlined in the literature, some of the effective standards that we ask you as teachers to implement. When we develop our own instruments, might not reflect them in our practices. But I'm going to ask you, and all of you in this space, to hold yourself to a higher standard than the ministry.
And the Ministry of Education?
Yes, hold yourself. Don't allow the ministry's practice to be the standard you set for yourself. And I say that without apologies to the ministry. Because the truth is, the Ministry of Education is a large organization trying to figure out too many things, one of which is assessment. I want you, Lorna, the person in charge of your classroom with your 40 grade 3, grade 4, grade 9, or grade 11 students. I want you to determine what is best for your students and do not allow the ministry's bad practices, if we were to define them in that way, to guide the way
If we're
you
preparing
develop
them to do ministry
your
exams, sir, we have to encourage them to be aware of what our ministry tests them.
Yeah,
we're
man,
preparing
and
them for ministry in the exams and PEP and all of that. So we have to let them be aware of the testing methods that the ministry uses. But I quite understand where you're going.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate what you have said.
Right. I don't disagree with you. You should ensure that the student knows how to sit for an hour and 30 minutes and sit a test, for example, because test taking is a skill that the students need to learn. They need to know how to sit for an hour and 40 minutes and work through 30 multiple choice questions and 2 workout questions and submit a paper at the end. They can't talk to anybody under testing condition. That is something you have to give them. The problem I have, though, to be honest, is that that seems to be the only thing we want to do with them. Do more than that. Don't allow that to become the standard. Encourage your staff, your colleagues, your principal even, to start thinking about assessment as a way of building students' confidence, a way of promoting deeper and more meaningful learning. That's what you are doing assessment for. We at the ministry are doing it for something else. We're using it for other purposes. You are using it so that your students can be encouraged from one day to the next. As they do the different assessment, their learning is deepened. Their experiences with the curriculum become more enriched. That's what you are doing with assessment, We don't a ministry, and I'm using the very callous language that I know you all use with us. We don't a ministry, not looking at it like that. You have 40 students. Do what you know is best for your 40 students. And that is the standard I'm asking you guys to kind of work towards. And don't allow the ministry's insistence on pen and paper tests for every single assessment we do to be the guide that you follow. Gareth Gordon, and this is the last hand.
Yes, no. I'm getting the impression from my colleagues that the end of year test or the test is this one-off test thing. But we have to remember that we have the different assessment. So we have the authentic tests, the projects, and all the different things within. That is a part of the variety. All right. So so your testing skills throughout, and it is attributed to the final assessment score. All right. So I believe in a variety in that one test, but there are other tests that complement the whole process. So we can get a variety of the students' skill sets and knowledge through different sources. And so that adds up to be, a good sum of variety right there.
Indeed. And I taking a global view of assessment, absolutely. Variety can be built into your midterm. It can be built into your homework, your seat work, the projects they do, and so on. But also, I want to say that we are encouraging you to put variety into your end of year test as well. Yes. So here are some item types that you can consider: concept maps, closed procedure, matrix completion, and expanded MCQ. We're going to look at each of these quickly, and God knows I've spent way too much time in the earlier parts of the presentation and may have to go a little faster because Miss Bailey is waiting backstage to run on and close the show. And I don't want her to get cold, I don't want her to be around there and lose her voice, So here are 4 different types of items that I want you to think about and be bold enough to start putting them on your end of term test. Concept map. Now, a concept map I have found to be a very effective way of assessing students. Anytime I teach and I'm asked to create an assessment for a student that becomes like an exit exam or a final test, I can tell you, put money on it, there's going to be a concept map on that test. Because concept map, I find, is one of the most effective way to see if a student understands a concept, how it is made up, what are the different characteristics of that concept. Here's an example of a concept map. So a concept map, all it does is it takes a concept and look if a student can break down the concept in different ways. So if you think about trees, we realize that trees provide oxygen, oxygen, they provide shade, and they are used to make paper. And then we can now say that oxygen is needed by most animals. Paper is used to make money and is used to make books. You see, oh, this could be a paragraph, you know, a child could write a paragraph about the usefulness of trees within the environment. This could be a paragraph that they write. It's a little easier, especially for those who are struggling with the literacy, to perhaps do a concept map. At a glance, you can see what it says, and it helps them to kind of organize their thoughts. The idea of a graphic organizer. This is a simple example of a concept map that can be used in some of our earlier grades. It's very, when you're thinking of using a concept map, the problem with concept map is that they are very open. And yes, Mr. Farkin says trees provide food. So where oxygen and shade is, you might also have seen food and something else. And that's the point. They are very open. They are very open in the sense that if you have a class with 50 students and you ask them to complete a concept map about trees, you might get 50 different concept maps. And that's one of the problems that I find teachers have when they think about an assessment item like this. They're like, but how we are going to mark it? Everybody going to give you a different something. It is hard, and it is hard to mark. It is absolutely hard to mark. It's not like a math question you give them, and by the time you get to the fifth person's response, you can tell at a glance what is right and what is wrong. Because everybody gives you the same response, you know? That's not what this is. A concept map is open. It is open for interpretation. Each child might give you a different response. And for that reason, I find that teachers tend to struggle with giving these questions because of the time involved in scoring them. Rubrics are very useful when you give a concept map. Another thing that I encourage is give students incomplete concept maps and ask them to complete the concept map. For example, look at this concept map that you can give a child. Or give some students. The diagram below shows how some terms may be related to each other. Select four of the following choices. I don't even know if it's still four, to be honest. Select from the following choices. So when placed in the blank spaces on the diagram, they give a relationship that is true. Choices can be used more than once. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 options here. And from these 7 options, the child must figure out what word is to be placed in the box, so that the relationship that is implied is true. I'm not going to ask you to perhaps solve it, but right away, I know the science teachers in group space, the grade 6 teachers, the grade 5 teachers have already developed a solution. Has anybody ever already solved this and can just kind of read the sentence for us very quickly so that we see how the concepts are related, just in the interest of hearing whether or not you get a good understanding of what concept map is? Anybody wants to just put up their hand and read it for us very quickly? Let me lower Miss McCullough's hand. I see Mr. Martin says solid. Mr. Martin says solid. I don't know what solid means, sir. But let me show you the solution in the interest of time. I'm aware that Ms. Bailey is anxious to take the mic. So a solution could be, and I imagine there might even be another solution, but the solution could be matter can be solid and also matter can be liquid. Liquid turns into vapor. Vapor is a gas. Liquid can be water. And you know, so this again it could be a paragraph if you ask the child to write it. But the concept map allows the child to kind of represent it in a different ways and have to be a little bit more thoughtful in the words that they choose to put in the different boxes, right? Give me a second, please. Does anybody have any experience using concept maps? Anybody with experience using concept maps? Anybody has ever used a concept map before? Has anybody ever used a concept map before? Let me try to raise my, there you go. Concept map is like filling in the blank. I use graphic organizers every week. Yes, I've used it with the solar system. Yes, in class sessions. I see quite a few yeses. Garrett Gordon has raised his hand. Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Garrett. Please be quick. Go ahead, Garrett.
Yes, yes, I've used it now, and just the one with the solid liquid and gas. I used it in my last test. But what I did, I applied that blank, those filling spaces. I applied it to multiple select choices. That's just that thing right there. So the concept
Oh,
map is laid out there. We have like a B, C within the slots, and
mhm.
they would select their answers. So that's the only difference there. The map is set out there, and they're figuring out the thing, but it's in a multiple select choice format that I used it.
Okay, that is interesting. I perhaps was going to ask you to share an example, but I don't think we have time. But that's also another variation. So it's a
Yeah,
multiple select option you have for each
yeah,
incomplete line or for each box.
yeah.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Another example. Now, it's good to use concept map when you're thinking of like a cause and effect relationship. Concept maps aren't always useful, but I find just from my experience that a concept map is most useful when you're perhaps getting into like a cause and effect relationship, such as lifestyle choices and diseases. And you can see right away, or you can do a concept map to build all lifestyle choices such as not exercising or eating fatty food and the consequence of that. And you kind of have your lines going away from eating fatty food and what are the consequences of that. That kind of relationship is very useful when you are thinking about a concept map. Or if you think about a concept that has many subparts, if you think about like weather, for example, weather is such a complicated concept because it has many different subtopics. You have weather types, rainy, sunny, stormy, whatever. Different weather types exist. And each of those weather types is attached or is associated with weather instruments. So when it's rainy, what do you use to measure rain? When it's sunny, what do you use to measure sunshine or heat or temperature, whatever? And each of those different weather type is associated with different impact. And some are associated with multiple impact and so on. So right away, you can see our rich concept map can be built in a situation where you have a complicated concept with many subtopics. And then another time you can think about using a concept map is when you have two concepts that share a complex relationship, such as technology and health, and so on. So you can build concept map. You can start thinking about areas of your practice or of your topic, your subject, where you can build a concept map. Here's an example, as I was saying, about whether can be A, B, C. What could go for A or B or C? What could go for A? Let's see A. Whether can be what? A, what could go for A? Where are my grade 4, grade 5, grade 6 teachers, my social study teachers? Daisy says she uses concept map in her social. Well, I know I saw some hands and I ignored them. I'm sorry, guys. A story map too is also very useful if you're teaching language, literature. This is something that I know they used to impose on me a lot. I'd have to kind of build a story map to show how a story evolves. What can weather be? What could go where A is? Weather can be rainy, it can be sunny, it can be windy. And if let's say we use rainy for A, is measured by what would you use to measure rain? And again, an unexpected response is going to come at D, rain gauge, and BE, and so on and so forth. And again, you see how a concept map kind of helps to just tease out the concepts and allow the child to just fill in the blanks. Now, this is an easy kind of item that you could use on a test, and it becomes almost like a fill in the blank kind of activity. So do you think you could use a concept map on your next test? And what would prevent you think, from using a concept map? Don't answer that no, but kind of reflect on it a little bit and see if this is something that your next end of term exam is coming up. The end of year exam is coming up shortly, actually. Have you started writing it as yet? If not, do you think a concept map is something you could use? Would you want to use a concept map with students before, though, you have given them one or two in class that they can try, just to give them this idea of what it looks like and how they complete it, I'm going to introduce you very quickly to three other items that you can consider. I know I saw somebody earlier in the chat mentioning closed procedure. So in a closed procedure, students get an incomplete paragraph and they have to choose from a choice of words to complete it correctly. This is almost like a concept map, except it is entirely in Word. So use the words below to complete the paragraph. Dash exists in 3 states. It could be solid, dash, or, and so on. This is the same kind of item that, that we saw before with the concept map, except now we're using it as a closed paragraph. That is this item here that looks at the different states of solid. So a closed procedure is more than just a single fill-in-the-blank sentence. And that's important. A closed procedure is more than one sentence because you are building an entire paragraph, perhaps 2 or 3 sentences that allows children to read the entire thing and make it make sense. It's more than just one sentence with one word to be filled in. I think we looked at the example before. This is one of the easiest types of item to write. And it's one of the items I would really encourage you to start thinking about using. So the first thing you do when you're writing a closed paragraph is you pick 2 or 3 sentences. You might go into a textbook or you go online and find 2 or 3 sentences that can now be changed to make a closed paragraph. You might choose to write 2 or 3 sentences. We're going to pick a sentence or pick 2 or 3 sentences, pick those that have many concepts embedded in it. I'll show you an example in a minute. Once you do that, you identify the words that you can remove. The best words to remove are verbs like is, release, add, those kinds of verbs because they present choices for students. Remove adjectives like under, above, beside, or numbers, quantities, and nouns, square, shape, gas. And then fill in the blank yourself and see if it works. Here's an example. Look at this. Look at these 3 sentences. There are 7 days in a week. The first day of the week is Sunday, and the last day of the week is Saturday. The weekend is made up of Saturday and Sunday, even though Sunday does not come at the end of the week. Could you convert this to a closed paragraph? And what words would you replace to make this a closed paragraph? What words would you take out of this to make it a closed paragraph? There are 7 days in a week. The first day of the week is Sunday, and the last day of the week is Saturday. The weekend is made up of Saturday and Sunday, even though Sunday does not come at the end of the week. So quite a few persons are saying, take out the word 7. You take out the word 7, Saturday and Sunday. Take out all the names of the days, I see somebody saying. So you get the idea. The idea is take out the words that are adjectives, nouns, verbs. Those are important words that you take out. Adjectives in particular are very useful because the student now must figure out what is the adjective that goes here. There are dash days in a week. Dash days in a week. What is the dash? First and last are also, in this case, also good options that you can consider, and so on. And you can try it on your own and see if you like how it looks. Remember too, that when you take out a word, list it right away as an option in the word pool. But it is also useful that if you have 5 blanks down here, make sure you put 6 or 7 words from which they are choosing, so that the child has more options to choose from than words that they need. So they need 5 words, but there are 7 words up there. So they have a chance to have to make some decisions, All right, I am very mindful of the time. And so I'm going to go, I perhaps want to go through these, but I kind of hoping you'll get the point as to the different ways in which you can vary your end of term, your end of year assessment by including items that you traditionally might not have used or that are not as popular, items that create opportunities for students to think, for students to make choices. Somebody just says that they increase the rigor with more words than needed. Indeed, That's kind of like what you're trying to do at all times, you know, increasing the rigor of the item. If you look at this example, which of the following is one way of describing the number 25? This is a multiple choice question. Is it a square number, an even number, a prime number, or an ordinal number? There's only one correct answer here. The child, many kids will know that this is a square number, but they may not know if it is also a prime number, but they know it's a square number. So they will select square number easily. You see how an item like this gives away the answer without creating opportunities to make real decisions. A child who knows that 25 is a square number doesn't need to know if it is also a prime number in order to answer this question, because they already know the answer is a square number. So they don't need to know if it is also even or prime or ordinal. As a matter of fact, they may not even know what ordinal means, but they know that it's a square number, so they know the answer can't be B, C, or D. Suppose we ask a question like this instead. What type of number is 25? Select yes or no for each. Is it a prime number? Yes or no. The child must make a decision there. Is it a square number? Yes or no. Again, the child must make a decision there. Is it an odd number, an even number, a composite number? And so the child is answering not just one question, but the child is answering effectively 5 questions here. And by the way, all of these questions are questions that I took from end of year tests. I just took questions from the end of year test that I got and kind of make it into this frame. Yes, these are real questions I got from real papers that real teachers wrote, that real students answered in real schools, is the point I'm making. Yes. And so the idea is, how do you create assessment that gives students more opportunities to think? A multiple choice question may not do that very well, except perhaps you make it a matrix completion, or if you really want to get to it, you might make it a multiple choice, but they have to explain their answer when they are finished. So this diagram shows how high 2 students jumped on sports day. This is Jan, she jumped this meet that high, and Beth jumped that high. Who jumped higher? Is it Jan or is it Beth? Now, once you ask that question, the child will choose A or B, but do you know why the child chose A or B? The child might guess A and go, well, I'm going to guess A. Or the child might look at A and say, A is the answer because this number here, 0.4051, that number has what? That number has 5 digits. And that number over there for Beth only has 3 digits. 5 digits must be larger than 3 digits. So A is the answer. Jan is the answer. Give the child a chance to explain to you why he or she has chosen that answer. So the follow-up question is, how do you know? And now you give the child 4 options to select why they chose Jan or why they chose Beth. Now again, it's more opportunities to think, more opportunities for the child to make decisions, to explain to you why it is that they are doing what they are doing. Yes? All right, so I have more than overstayed my welcome. I am going to make way for Miss Bailey. Before I do that, I wonder if there is any pressing question, 1 or 2, pressing question that anybody might have. Yes, we will circulate a link in the chat in a few minutes that allows you to access, to share your information with us so that we can certify and so on. Any question that anybody has that you definitely need to ask now before I make way for Ms. Bailey, who will take us through the second aspect of this presentation. All right, great, excellent stuff. Miss Smith has a question. Miss Smith, Andrea.
Sir, it's not a question, it's just a commendation. I always love your presentation. I have learned a lot and I have been taking my notes.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrea.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we're starting the fan club. Become the president, you hear? Any other question, comments, concerns? Anybody wants to say anything else? All right, so we'll put the evaluation link in the chat in a minute. LHM, ask to unmute.
Yes, good afternoon,
Hi, greetings.
everyone. All right, that's Atoya Howell Marshall, sir. As my colleague before said, I do enjoy your presentations, but based on today's presentation, though, I like to ask my students to justify. So I always do a little tweaking when it comes to my exams. And while I concur with others in terms of bringing those that you did at the onset of the presentation, the normal ones, the ones that we're used to, I do include them, but I always do a little tweaking because I always tell my children it's not so much knowing the right answer, it's how you get there. So I have them do their pictorial thing and all of that to demonstrate. So I always make space for that on any exam paper that I am doing.
All right, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. Thank you, Latoya. And very often when we have these conversations, we present these things almost as the enemy of the things that exist already. And that's unfortunate sometimes the way we talk about these things, because there is nothing wrong with multiple choice questions. And I'm not telling you to stop using multiple choice questions. No, not at all. Remember, test taking is a skill that kids need to learn. That is something that you as a teacher have an obligation to teach them. Test taking is a skill that they must leave school with, and that's just the truth. They must understand the idea of sitting down quietly without checking the internet, without talking to their friends, without turning to their book, and answer 60 questions in 2 hours. You must teach them that. And therefore, they must have the appreciation for 40 multiple choice questions. That's something that you have to teach them. So absolutely keep doing those things that you're doing. I'm not telling you to stop, but I'm saying in addition to those things, I want you to start thinking about adding some variety to it. Yes, absolutely what I'm encouraging you to think about. Miss Drader Bailey has been waiting in the wings. I told her that she's closing the show today. I told her that we don't bring Beres Ammon to Sumfest for him to do the early juggling. Beres Ammon go Sumfest because Beres Ammon going to close the show. So I'm going to ask you now, please, to welcome to the mic the one and only, the great, the ultimate show closing performance, Miss Drader Bailey, who will walk you through a presentation, or run you through, if I know her well enough, a presentation on gathering and making use of evidence for your appraisal. The next voice you will hear is Miss Bailey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leslie. Unfortunately, colleagues, I cannot sing. I am no Beres Hammond, and I will not do you any disservice by attempting to sing for you this afternoon. As I am getting ready to present for you, I want you to quickly go on a treasure hunt if you haven't gathered this document. You need one lesson plan. It doesn't matter the topic area, content area, it doesn't matter the term of your lesson plan. So you're going to need that for this session. And I'm going to invite
Miss Bailey. Miss Bailey, please forgive me. For the purpose of the YouTube video, we wish to have 2 videos on YouTube. So we want to stop the live streaming so that we can start, so that we will have 2 videos, one for the first session and one for this one. So guys,